Let's invite some people, shall we? Hello, whoever you are. Say what's up. Wait till we get a few more viewers, send out some invites. Start up a watch party or whatever the heck. This video I would like to discuss, just like it says, the rulers, all these rulers jockeying for position. And how does this affect us today? If we look around, and all these different places that are continuing their lockdowns are the same people that were screaming that Trump was the tyrant. These different political moves, political angles, right? Do we honestly believe that these political moves, their chess game, do we honestly believe that it only started with America? Do we honestly believe that it only started with, the assassination of JFK? Sometimes I believe that we need to figure out a little more historicity on all of it, because the same liberties and constitutional rights of human beings in America has been under attack for a very, very, very long time. And it's been under attack by the exact same people throughout the sands of time. They're always jockeying for control. The sands of time trickle. Each grain may look different under a microscope, but to the naked eye, each one looks pretty much the same, and it just keeps dropping per grain down through the time. It's all the same system. It's all the same move to, let's say, annihilate personal liberty. We go back in the sands of time to, you can go back. We already know that the Catholic Church is heavily involved in everything that is going on. In fact, if you did some digging, you would realize that it was actually the Pope and the CIA through back channels and Reagan that brought down communist Russia. We already understand that these people are all interconnected, right? Not all of us. There are some people out there that just haven't really done much of any research at all, and they are kind of a bane in existence, but at some point I believe that humanity, especially here in America, needs to take a step back, take a serious step back, and take a gander at what's going on, and realize that our battle today is a very, very ancient one. Thank you for the hearts. Our battle today is a very, very, very ancient one, and it comes from, anybody out there, any scholar out there, would probably laugh these days maybe at the ideology of 6,000 years old is what our Earth is, but really that is not the case. We really need to look at who these so-called gods are, and who these so-called lords are. All throughout history, it's been nothing but rulers being overthrown by other rulers, constant. One lord ruling the people, doing for the people, pretending uh, to be providential for the people, only to carry the power, you see. And when the Messiah, right? He was talking to that centurion. The guy told him, hey, I am a man of authority too. I tell people what to do all the time too. And this is what they call power, right? That you give an order and that order is carried out. That's called power. The man who sits at the top usually does not want to relinquish that power. And eventually, each and every single man, whether they started out with a well-intentioned or not, ends up corrupted in order to maintain that power. And that's exactly what we are seeing within our government these days. The governor in Michigan, it's I'm the ruling class, so you have to do what I say, but I don't have to do what I say because I'm the ruler. Now, I mean, you get into the Renaissance era time is the perfect. Most people, I guess, don't necessarily understand what the Renaissance was, but this is during the time of Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, the Medicis in Florence, the Pope in Rome, like the entire Renaissance period of mankind in our modern age, I guess you can say, maybe since Messiah, I don't even, but it desperately shows how corrupt people are in order to maintain power, what lengths they will go to in order to maintain power, even when the people are at absolute protest of that power. Well, see, all throughout this time, you had people who ruled different cities and ruled different kingdoms, and they really honestly thought that by their money and by their nobility and their bloodline, that they had a divine, right to rule those people. And I mean, even when you go through the stories of the kings in the Bible, you had one king that was doing righteousness, and then you'd have 3 or 4 kings that kind of went way off the deep end, and then you'd have one that kind of dug up some old books and was like, what the crap, you know what I mean? This is not, we're not doing any of what this is saying for us to do. And so you had some rulers, I guess lords, that were benevolent, that were righteous, and then you have a lot more that the corruption supersedes the righteousness. We came across this ideology somewhere that really illogically does not make any sense, that in order to do good, that sometimes you also have to do some bad in order for the greater good to come about, which is absolutely it's just a rationalization. It's an absolute rationalization to try and justify. Yes, I shaved my head, Jeffrey. We convince ourselves that sometimes some bad has to be done in order for the greater good to come about. And it's just an absolute rationalization to try and justify that behavior. Hi, Amanda. Justify that behavior so that they can maintain power. It's all in the name of these lords. It's all in the name of these gods. That people are murdered, people are poisoned. And I've said it before, and if you really did some digging, you'd see it. You'll get to it. But George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, Zachary Taylor, I'm sure there's a couple of more in there. Hamilton was almost assassinated twice. And then you have Abraham Lincoln. All these men were assassinated. They were poisoned. The vast majority of them actually died on July 4th, which was kind of an FU from, the Catholics and the Jesuits and the monarchs of Europe. This battle that we are faced with today, we patriots, this is a battle to the death. It is a battle involving life. That, that battle between liberty and tyranny. You see, one thing that you will find in each and every single story that you do read, whether you're reading Homer or Dante or Shakespeare, it really doesn't matter who you're reading. When you go out through historicity, each and every single time, each and every single ruler, each one of these lords that these people hailed as gods, their benevolency would eventually run out. Their providential duty would eventually run out. Like, they would always eventually do whatever they had to in order to save their own asses and not the people. This is time and time and time and time again. Did you know that Abraham Lincoln actually made his name defending a man that was being accused of rape by a Catholic bishop and another Catholic priest, another father? Charlie? No? Why is that coming? Why is that flashing up? Anyway, the name will come to me. But anyway, Abraham Lincoln, like, there was this Catholic priest in Chicago that was seeing all of the depravity and licentiousness amongst the priests and all the sexual illicitness, just flat out did not care, right? So this Bishop Reagan guy was like the head of it all, and this other cat didn't like what was going on and were like, you guys are not, like, being men of God. What the crap? So Bishop Reagan and this other father cat, they decide to they get together and they conspire to bring rape charges, use this supposed victim, to bring rape charges upon the guy who was telling them that, look, man, these people are, visiting whorehouses and raping these young girls and everything else. Projection, especially the projection of some type of sexual offense, is nothing new. So Abraham Lincoln defended this guy, and it was looking bleak, man. It was looking real bleak. The papers had Bishop Reagan's side. I mean, there was even some papers that were formed in order to be able to print the Reagan narrative, that, Bishop Reagan was the one that was being, falsely accused, and this guy is actually the rapist. I mean, how often have we seen that nonsense? You know what I'm saying? So it was looking real bleak. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this woman shows up, and she was actually in the house when Bishop Reagan and this other father dude were talking about it. So she tells Abraham Lincoln, I will testify to the truth. And she did, and all they had to acquit the guy. But it really looked bad. Bishop Reagan took off. I don't think that he was ever really seen again. He probably went back to Rome and then went to a different part of the world. And eventually Abraham Lincoln was was murdered for it. That and several other different things, but he was murdered by the same people uh, that murdered JFK, that weaseled their way in China from the early 1800s till 1945. The Jesuit movement, the call to arms of the Jesuits in China, and then the guy whose kid actually sets up the WHO actually graduated from Cornell University, from uh, a Jesuit fraternity. Then he moves back. He sets up a bunch of other different things. This is all intertwined from these people. This conspiracy, so-called, like, goes back a lot farther than what people think. And if you get more into the historicity of who these people are, like, you understand more about the shoes of the statue being iron mixed with clay, and how Danny Yeel said that they would intermarry to try to stay strong, these noble so-called bloodlines that decided to become tyrants. It goes all the way through. I mean, we think that the institution of the Catholic Church is the beginning. It was not. The Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and Herodians, they set up and became the Catholic Church after they moved to Rome when they beheaded Shaul. It's the same people that are faking being Jews. They're not. They're the Revelation 2:9 Jews, the ones that are faking it. But they are a synagogue of Satan. You see, the Zionists, they're all fakes. They moved in, swept in, took everything by force. The ancient tablets that would have been left over from Enoch, which is Thoth, and King Solomon. All those different tablets of knowledge would have eventually became their Kabbalah. It's all been hijacked. We tell ourselves, we admit to ourselves that, okay, we've been lied to. We've been lied to just about everything except this, except for my Bible, except for my American Standardized Version of the Bible, except for my New International Version of the Bible, instead of my King James Version of the Bible, which none of them are translated from the original text or the original language. So everything is lost in translation. There's a part in Jeremiah 6, 16, where he says, stand at the crossroads and look. Ask about the ancient path. Walk in it and you will find rest for your souls. The ancient, and people think because we get around in cars and we've got phones to communicate that we're hot shit and that means something. It doesn't. Time does not exist, you see. When it says that the Creator is not a respect, and I believe it's Yechezkiah, that the Creator is not a respecter of persons. He doesn't care whether you're a noble man or a poor man or a human or a reptilian or the mantis species or whatever the hell these guys can come up with. It does not matter, you see. Autonomous consciousness is autonomous consciousness. It doesn't matter where you're from or what your profession is or what you decide to do with your life. In this experience here, within third density, within this part of the cycle, within all of this, this is all part of an experience of acknowledgement of autonomous consciousness. The ideology soon growing that no matter who or what that autonomous consciousness is that is sitting or standing or laying before you is worthy of the same treatment and the same compassion and the same love that you are, regardless. They use this deranged ideology of racism to separate and divide us when truly there is only one race in the entire universe, and that is autonomous consciousness. It doesn't matter what skin you wear or what you do get around and transport or how you do communicate. None of that actually truly matters. What we put on our bodies to cover ourselves does not truly matter. What color we decide to put our hair, what earrings we choose to wear with what outfit, none of that matters to autonomous consciousness. And none of it matters to the universe, you see. The universe is the conscious entity that is manifest and not manifest, but most manifest. That's what we are experiencing in. These rulers hijack it for one reason and one reason only: power, control over others. Be able to give orders, and those orders are followed. We as a people have been lost in that ideology that sometimes in order for a greater good to happen, that some bad has to happen, when I challenge that. I challenge that from the very core of my bones by saying, why can't we just always do the righteous thing? We know that there is nonstop corruption in our government and jockeying for the pilfering of the American people and their tax dollars. So my question is, when are the people going to decide that, no, we are next going to do the righteous thing and always continue to do that righteous thing, because the doers are justified, right? If we are actually going to, which we were not founded as a Christian nation. The founding fathers tried to separate it all out so that the Catholic Church couldn't invade it. The Jesuits could not invade it. The monarchs of Europe could not invade it. I am a staunch believer in the book of Yahweh, but I am also another staunch believer of our Constitution and our laws of liberty, because they line up straight with it. You see, the original did. We became corporatized. You became a straw man identity in all caps, and we are lost in this Roman wilderness of pain, and all the children running around insane with masks on their face thinking that they're doing something, and that if you don't wear one, you're just a selfish asshole, even though the mask on the box says it does nothing to protect from COVID-19. But we, us autists want to dig deep. What us autists, the only thing that matters is the truth. And in the end, the pen becomes mightier than the sword when the knowledge of the collective, you see, knows truth. I've talked about it before. There's a part in the Great Pymander where Enoch, is talking to his son, Tut, and he tells him that, he says, you see, son, that it is by access to the truth that envy is gone from us. We have been denied the truth of reality, of experience, of this place. We have been denied all of that truth. And in the end, this is the result. Lords and gods have decided for us for generations and generations and decades and hundreds of years, centuries, millennia, eons, ages. These people have decided for the people. But now we are coming into a time when the people are deciding for themselves, you see. James Monroe, during the Congress of Vienna and the Congress of Verona, the monarchs of England, the Jesuits, and the Pope, and all their different cardinals and whatnot, were planning on what they were going to do in order to infiltrate and destroy America. You see, These people think that look into the study of eugenics, and the biggest person you will find is Bill Gates. These people think that they were given a divine right to rule the masses. James Monroe wrote that Monroe Doctrine, and stating that we do not, bow down to any divine right to rule, and that the right to govern is given expressly by the governed. Now, when the people doing the governing are not governing by the will of the people, then they are not doing their job. They are in seeking their own power. We're watching this happen. We're watching this happen in different little sections of cities that have certain types of leadership. In different areas of the country, we're seeing this sometimes in full cities, sometimes in full states. But we're seeing higher deaths from the coronavirus in the same states. New York, California, Michigan, and one other state that are completely locked down. It'll come to me in a second, but are completely locked down. Illinois, that are completely locked down, are 43,789, I think it was, come out of all the 60, 70,000 cases at the time that's those numbers were taken. The states that were open only account for 6,874, I think it was. Why are they still locked down? We, as a people, need to start using more ration and logic instead of what we think we feel in our heart, because that can really, really, really deceive a person. Because what you want to believe in your heart, just like Shaul talks about in Romans, right, where he says that they have in their heart the requirement, the requirement of the fulfillment of the law, but as soon as they take a look at the actual law, they want to jump back and defend themselves. When we call it now a cognitive dissonance. They put a scientific little name on it, but we immediately want to use all type of irrational logic or illogical logic to rationalize who we think we are, what we think we know. And sometimes that can be very, very damaging. And a belief, right? A belief itself is merely a conclusion based upon the evidence that one has obtained up until that point in time, in the now. Once you learn more, the belief, right, the conclusion should always be remaining retroactive. It should always be changing, because new information is always being added if you are seeking it. But you do have to seek it. And as an artist, you can't get comfortable or complacent with an idea, and then we go out there and almost mock the people that are completely confirmationally biased, the people that believe the twisting of video and words. Well, just like I said in the beginning of the video, that we will admit that we have been lied to and put on a show about every single thing else but this. This I know. I had a conversation with another friend of mine on Facebook earlier today, which sometimes you get to a certain point when you're having a conversation with somebody and you just know the dissonance is going to end up coming, because when you believe a certain thing for a very, very long time, it becomes superseded in your head. It becomes the superfluous thing that we want constant. This is how I feel. I believe it in my heart to be true. It may not be true in what was written, but I believe in my heart that what was written is a lie. He said, What fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets had spoken. Well, doesn't it help to understand what the prophets actually said in order to believe it? I believe that that would be somewhat a prerequisite. But when we're digging into the, like Septuagint, uh, transliterated into the Greek, from Greek, I mean, these in Jeremiah chapter 8, it talks about the lying pens of the scribes had falsified them and written them wrong. And that was in his time. And he was also talking about now. Most of 80% of what those old prophets were talking about had to do with these days. We all know we're living in. Didn't the Messiah say that everyone's going to say the Messiah's over here, the Messiah's over there, the Messiah's over here, he's over there, he's over there? That don't believe him. Don't believe many are going to come against my name. Don't listen to him. I mean, he tells us in Matthew 7:23 that there's this huge wide path that everybody's going to go gulping down, but there's only few who find it, the narrow path. I mean, over here. So, I mean, if we're going to believe that he, died on that stake as a replacement for our sins, as a redemption for our sins, as the last sacrifice, then we also have to believe the rest of what he said. If you're going to believe one part of a 6,000 page book, if you're going to believe one line out of it, then you have to believe the rest of it. How does that make any sense? But the way that they have it written, the way that they have it transliterated, it doesn't make any sense. All it does is induce confusion by the contradictions within it. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Where there is contradiction, there cannot be truth. If there is a contradiction in numbers, somewhere along the lines a mistake was made. If there is a contradiction in two doctrines, then one or both have to be wrong. Both can't be right. That would destroy the very foundation of the word truth, thereby making it a lie. All truths can't be true. But there's a little truth in all of it. We just have to dig and find it. It takes a while. It takes a good long while, but it takes an effort, you see. In Isaiah, he says, truly you are a father who hides. And the reason for that is for reason. You see, it's all here. Doesn't have anything to do with this body, man. It really does not. None of this, none of what we are experiencing right here has anything to do with the body. None of it. It has everything to do with the consciousness, learning to understand why doing the righteous thing is so important. And why, when somebody does an unrighteous thing that, perpetrates a great amount of harm on another or another's, more a group of people, a plethora of people. If if someone does an unrighteous act that puts a lot of people at harm, then say something. Turning a blind eye to all of this is how we got in this mess. I mean, everyone doesn't want to necessarily hurt someone's feelings, but at the end of the day, getting your feelings hurt as a child is what made you learn sometimes. But now we don't want to do that. Everything's got to be politically correct, which is just an agenda to slide in more depravity. You're intolerant, and it doesn't have anything to do with tolerance. I mean, it has everything to do with doing the righteous thing for humanity, for the whole of humanity's sake, instead of just our own, instead of just our city, instead of just our state, instead of just our country. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm what I like to call a national worldist. I believe that once America gets straightened out by removing the corruption from the bottom up and from the top down, that we can take care of each and every single American, and then some. We will be able to help the world out after we get them, every single American, uh, doing and pursuing, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of righteous happiness, the pursuit of righteous joy. You know, uh, you know what's funny is tithes, right? All these churches, that's what they do. They want your tithes. You know, you got to give to the Lord. Got to service the Lord with $100 or maybe even $1,000. No, but they want you to tithe to their place, but they don't ever. That's the only tithe they ever talk about, is the one tithe that's supposed to go to the church. They don't ever talk about the other two. And there, if you really dug into the text, you would see that there are three different tithes, three different tenths of your income that are to be separated from the rest of the 70. You got the one that goes directly to the church, right? Then you have another one that's supposed to go into a savings account. And then your third tithe, you see, this is why the young rich man went away with many possessions all sad and shit, is because he didn't want to give his third tithe. The third tithe is supposed to go directly to the poor. Could you imagine if the richest people in America, each and every single week or each and every single month or each and every single year, gave away a tenth of their gross earnings for that year directly to the poor? What would happen? There wouldn't be any more poor. There's no possible way. The amount of money that would be flown into the impoverished areas, it would be rebuilt within a generation. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do anything that kind of cuts our own throat or cuts our own belt, when in reality, in real cause and effect reality, the more that we do for the less fortunate raises us all up. The more that we do for purposely subjected areas of the world, the more we do for each and every single one of us to get that, all those, economic dollars flow downward and then upward. That's a real true republic, when each and every single person out there has an equal voice, has an equal means and an equal right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of righteous joy. These politicians have lost sight of that. I mean, you have one politician that's been in Senate and Congress for 30 plus years, and they're worth almost $200 million. How does that happen at a civil service salary per year? They filled their own coffers. Imagine if those coffers, if the hundreds of billions of dollars that we send to China every single year, and the hundreds of billions of dollars we send to Saudi and nations each and every single year, if all of that was brought back and put into America, we would be able to, within a generation, we would be able to reestablish this republic where everyone was free, not bogged down by the bills, energy bills. When we've had patents and we've known about since the 30s for free energy that just does. Nothing has to really create it. It just creates it on its own through magnetism. Why these things suppressed? Because of the ruling class was allowed by unwitting people to suppress it. The great awakening that we are seeing now is more and more people are going to start demanding this type of thing. And I think that, the Q actually said that class action lawsuits do wonders. I think that, We've had several different senators and congressmen saying that American individuals need to start suing China. Suits can do some serious damage, um, you know. So we get these class action lawsuits, the Internet Bill of Rights. We get these different class action lawsuits to have all the uh, harmful chemicals removed from our food and our drinking products. These are the things that we have to do, but we cannot do them divided, especially by some stupid ideology like race. I, the whole idea of eugenics and race really just irks me. It bothers me quite a lot, actually, because of the fact that you know no one in this universe, uh, due to conscious autonomy, is more or less capable of righteousness than you are or I am. It is your decision whether or not you want to do the righteous thing. It is your decision as to whether or not you even want to learn what righteousness is. We are learning more and more about satanic ritual abuse going on to children, the sex trafficking of children and women across the entire globe, the thousands of arrests that have been made. That we know that, and we don't know the right number of children that have been saved from all this, but you know we do have a duty as a human being, right? We do actually have a duty to do the right thing, right? Even if it will only affect 4 generations later. you know the man who plants a tree knowing that he is never going to be able to sleep under his shade is learning something, you know to provide something for the next. You see, cause and effect, the great cause and effect loop. They can call it the karmatic flow, or karmic flow, the wheel. When all of us start making more causes that lead into a righteous direction, then the effect will be abundance for everyone. The effect will be peace. The effect will be safety and security by the mindset. You see, the transforming by the renewal of the mind, the mindset that righteousness matters more than anything else. Righteousness matters more than my own self, because my own self is only one cell in the organism of humanity itself. So self means nothing without the whole. Where we go one, we truly do go all. Because if one person is suffering, then the rest of humanity is not doing its duty to that person. What if you were the one suffering out on the street? You see, I've been that guy. I've been that guy. And it changes your perspective. It really, really does. Like the movie Trading Places, it changes your perspective on things, because you look at certain people, but you don't necessarily see them. You see yourself. Most people, need to take acid or some mushrooms in order for that to happen, but you can actually just weigh the experience with the rest of the experience, with the rest of the information, weigh it all together. We truly are. If they can spy on one American citizen, then they can spy on you. And that's their way of thinking. If one person in America if America lets them get away with doing it to one person, then they'll just continue to do it to everybody. Well, you said it was okay. When they went after the Sarniev brothers, you know, for the supposed Boston bombing, uh, and that they didn't. It's all the same bullshit lines. spilled by the same bullshit people. I'm sorry, that sneeze made me lose my train of thought there for a second. I think, you know, that more and more people are waking up, but I think more and more people, by looking at these different groups, the Fall of Cabal group, some of these other different groups um, have been infiltrated and completely demolished by shills and trolls. You know, but we have a duty here as artists, as, you know, people that are diggers for the truth. We have a duty to find it, root it out. You know, you don't want to necessarily silence people, but, you know, when someone does come in with some disinformation or misinformation, you know, you do want to call them out for it. And if they continue to do so, then yeah, block them. It's something provable, you know. We have a lot of different things that are provable and some things that are just not yet. We don't have the right documents in order to back them up. But we wait patiently. This thing takes time. We need more and more people moving into that area, that arena of deciding to fight for your rights, you know, to wake up and say, no, not anymore. I'm going to stand with my neighbors here, and you're no longer going to pilfer our tax dollars away from us. You're no longer going to tell us what we can and can't do. Um, we as a people are the only thing that can actually reestablish this republic. I am hoping that none of it has to involve any kind of real war, combat. Um, I'm very much so hoping that, but I think that at some point there may be a couple little pop-ups. But we as a people can shut all that shit down by just deciding to do the righteous thing. It's really not that difficult. It really isn't. Uh, Within our generation right now, we could annihilate poverty and hunger across the entire world, and everybody still make enough on their paycheck to pay all their bills and then some. A matter of budgeting out uh, the theft of over 90% of that money. And I think that's what's going on. But I mean, you don't necessarily have to be a Trump supporter in order to not support corrupt people. But it's really sad that there are so many people out there that will support really corrupt, proven liars just because they have it in their head that this other person is bad. And I will never understand that logic. You don't have to back a bad person just because you think the other person is bad. The chosen sides, right? You know, before Lincoln was killed and we had the Civil War, there was actually 4 different parties that were going on for the presidency, and it was put to only 2 afterwards, so that it was easier to divide. You know, the first thing I would do if it was 4 people, you know, that were running for president and I won the presidency, the first thing that I would do is take all 3 of the people that ran against me and make them in my cabinet members and advisors. They wouldn't be where they were at if they hadn't, you know, done some sort of thing. But over the sands of time, just like I was talking about earlier, all these different rulers came. Some did righteousness, some did not. Some did righteousness, some did not. The vast majority did not do righteousness, and the people suffered. So we as a people can hold the people that we expressly give the right to govern us, right? We can hold them more accountable They're more accountable than what they tell us they are. I really don't understand that bullshit about how you can't be indicted on a crime if you're running for a government position. Bullshit. If you committed a crime and you're running for a government position, you should be arrested on the spot. And why the hell are you running for a government position? We need to take all that stuff out. The oath, you know, you're under oath in a court of law, but you're not under oath when you're walking around the street. That's some bullshit too. If you take a civil service position, I believe that from the second that you raise your right hand, put your hand on that book, and tell your oath to fulfill that position, that you are under oath from that time on until you are done with that being in that position. Anything you say can and will be used against you, and it should be held against them. For 3 years, they've been lying through their teeth about having evidence of collusion, and there's nothing. They have duped a lot of American people with this repeated story that is just not true. So when are we, the people, going to stand up and say enough is enough with the corruption? You know, we can't just expect other men to take care of it all the time. We can't just expect other people to do it all the time, take care of things all the time. We as the people need to do something too, to back these people, to show them that they have the support of the people, because they are only there to do the will of the people. When you go to court and you're charged with a crime, it's the people versus, you see? The people are the ones suing you for doing the crime, not the government. We have given way too much power and control of our own physical lives and physical thoughts, you know, that we've relinquished it, but we did it willingly for this false sense of security, for this false sense of you know, that our government is really doing the best for us. What are we seeing? I mean, we're seeing most of our government is not really doing the best for us. Most of our government just keeps making excuses about everything else instead of handling business. We have all wanted a righteous man to come and do things. You know, we have some have even begged for it. You know, we had the Messiah, but it's been a long time since we had an actual righteous man that, you know, tried to make things right without being killed, without being suicided, without being, you know, shot in the back in the middle of the streets of DC, without being indicted and sent to prison, without being free-cased and sent to prison, without being extradited to a whole different country on some bullshit. You know, why do we continue to allow this? We continue to allow them to corrupt and to deceive and to stifle out anybody that is going against their narratives. At some point, it's going to have to come off of Facebook and go into the streets, where we peacefully assemble, which is our right. You know, fighting for peace is kind of like fucking for virginity. That is irrational. It's illogical. Do the righteous thing. We don't have to have war in order to do the righteous thing. The people can just say no. Not going to have it. You know, like I said, there might be hot spots that pop up. And some people just want violence. Some people just want to watch the world burn. They're mad. They're mad at the world. You know, for a long time I was. I know some of the people are. I'm still kind of pissed at the world because it's really shitty right now. It's really shitty because we've allowed some people to make some really shitty decisions. What we've allowed to be done in our name is atrocious. It's disgusting. It's unacceptable. And I, for one, am tired of watching it happen, tired of listening to it happen, tired of hearing all these different cases of people being harmed that didn't need to be harmed in any kind of facet or phase. I want to do something about it. So I've decided to do something about it. I've decided to make a whole new change out of my whole life. Um, I am going to do something about it. I am going to get as many children fed as I possibly can, um, end as much child trafficking as I can. I just have to do something. I'm tired of expecting other people to just do it all. The more people that we have that decide that enough is enough, the better. I can't be the only one that's come to the end of their rope with it all, really. Like I'm at my wit's end with it all. So the only way to fight them is to get them out of office. Spread the truth, spread awareness, get them out of office. Make sure whoever they're running, that's running against them, let's make sure they're righteous people and that they have a righteous intention, and that their intention is to reinstate this republic the way that it was meant to be, not infiltrated to become some communist socialist country. If they want to live, if somebody wants to live in communist country, I don't have any problem with that. I don't have a problem with communism. In fact, I would actually say that, in the whole picture of reality, I would be a communist if there was a righteous person and that was uh, given expressed right to govern all of it, that knew to take care of everyone instead of just themselves. But we're not going to have that right now, especially these people. They've had thousands of years of being in charge and being the ones that revered by the masses. They're not going to give that up without a fight, I don't think. And that saddens me. But that's the truth of reality. That is the mark of Cain. The endless war and retaliation, the continuous retaliation. It's all part of the cycle until the end. But it's close. It really, really is. And the awakening, the exposing of this darkness is coming, I think, to almost critical mass worldwide, for real. I mean, there's so many people that I see each and every single day that it makes me smile, man. It trips me up because there's more and more people all over the world that are deciding that what was written on their heart, the righteousness in the law that was written on their heart, is telling them, it's compelling them, you see, to do something about these atrocities to other humans, these crimes against humanity, against other human beings upon this planet that's been going on for far too damn long. I don't give a shit, honestly, about Republican or Democrat at this point. It's not right or left. It's right and wrong. Some people want to rule with tyranny, and some people want to rule with liberty. You know, men used to die for this. Men would arm up, get their shields and swords, and go fight a dude over freedom. And we just slap on a mask and stay home for 4 months because, they said so. It's not going to do. It's not going to do at all whatsoever. So let us stand up, understand that this has been a war against consciousness, autonomous consciousness from the beginning. Learn the historicity and it'll all make total sense. What truly is satanic? What does Lucifer even mean? What does Hilal mean? Well, who is Balaam? Who is the doctrines of the Nicolaitans? What are they? We believe and will admit in our humility that we were lied to about celebrities, not being pedos, or celebrities being transgendered, or we were lied to about a birth certificate from Kenya rather than Hawaii. We were lied to about this, but how far back do you honestly think that those lies go? How far back of this plan to worldwide domination do you think this goes? These people have had nothing but it's like Pinky in the Brain. What are we going to do today? Same thing we do every day. Plan, plot, and scheme to rule the world. Plot and scheme to be the Lord God upon the earth. Or plot and scheme to be the supposed providential, uh, divinity. It's all nonsense. Every bit of it is nonsense. Carpe diem quam credula postero. And carpe diem is only half, not even half of the original quote. Quam credulus postero, which means in direct translation to seize the day, give no credit to the future. Because in order to create a better future, you have to cause shit now. You see? You have to do shit now in order for the effect to carry over to do, be the better world. We have to do things. We can't just expect it to happen, is basically what the quote means. You can't give any credit to the future. It's not just going to work itself out. YOLO, bro. We have to do things now in order to create that future. The sins are visited on the sons of the fathers up to 4 generations. There's a reason in that meaning. That the cause and effect just keeps looping and looping and looping and getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse each time it loops around itself. We've got to end that loop. We've got to end that cycle. Unity is the only thing that's going to end that cycle. Real unity. Do you give a shit about kids, or do you give a shit about being seen giving a shit about kids? Do you care about freedom? Do you care about the liberties that the Constitution provides? And do you really honestly think that everything is not political? Everything is political. This world has been built upon politics. Everything about this world is politics. And it goes back for thousands of years with these same bloodlines who feel like they're in charge. The senators of Rome became the cardinals and popes. Same bloodlines. The emperor of Rome dubs himself pope and has been political ever since. Read into Cosimo and Lorenzo Medici, who they are. Lorenzo Medici ended up having 2 sons that became pope throughout their lives in the Renaissance area. It's all political. They were trying to expand their state. They expanded it all through Europe by the mask of religion. But it's the same thing. It's the same difference. It's all just this ruling class eugenics mentality that they have the right to rule you. Do we want to bow down to that? Or do we want to say, no, the only right to govern is given expressly by the governed, because they want to do away with that. That they only elect amongst themselves who's going to govern. You don't. They don't think that you're capable. They don't think that you're smart enough. They don't think that you are intelligent enough or educated enough. You have to prove them wrong. They expect you to be ignorant and uneducated. The only way to truly rebel against a ruling class that expects you to be ignorant is to learn everything. The only way to truly rebel against a ruling class that expects you to get violent and throw tantrums is to become peaceful and more wise. That is true rebellion. Truly rebelling against an unrighteous society is by doing what? Doing and being righteousness. Doing righteousness. Being righteous. We are seeing the licentious, lascivious nature of, some of these people that really honestly truly believe that 21 abortions is okay, that it's their body, and they actually believe that murder is a right. We have to do something about these things, you see. But it has to be a mindset change of the collective. It can't be just a group of people that say, no, this is the way, and then you have to do it regardless. Those people have to change their minds. Those people have to look at things from a different perspective. The revolution is not going to be televised. The revolution starts in your mind the second you decide to look at something from a different angle, under a different light, from a different perspective. We have to change those people's minds. But acting unrighteous, doing unrighteousness, these things aren't going to change their mind. We have to get in the streets and start doing righteousness. And get out there, 20,000 people deep, and start doing repairs on people's houses in poor neighborhoods, y'all. You know what I mean? This is the things that we needed to do in order to reinstate this republic, you see, because one person's house, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So one person's house defines the rest of that nation. The shittiest house in this whole nation defines our entire nation. I will stand by that statement. But we can't get there by pilfering the American people. We can't get there by being corrupt. We have to get there by doing the next righteous thing, picking the right thing to do. That's where the whole change is gonna happen, the great awakening. Anybody have any questions, comments, feedback? That's all I got for tonight. Been going for a little over an hour. I love your faces, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.